Dr. Mindy here, and on this video, I am going to dive into the diet that makes you more resistant to burning fat. So if you're new to my channel, I just want to start off by saying welcome. All this week, I am diving into your fat burning hormone and how we can use diet and fasting, and stay tuned because there's a few other things to be able to get our hormones to work for us so that we burn fat more efficiently. So welcome and subscribe if you're brand new. And as always, if you love this video, send it out into the world. Okay. There is a hormone that makes you fat, and it's not insulin. So I want to start off by just, if you're new to the series here, I want to remind you that we have two hormones that cause you to hold on to weight. The first one is insulin. I think I have over 500 videos here on my channel, and I feel like most of them have been around helping you get out of insulin resistance. But we haven't really dove into a hormone that is your fat burning hormone called leptin. So insulin is what is storing your excess sugar, excess hormones, toxins. That's what stores it in fat. And leptin is actually a hormone that lives in our adipose tissue and sends a signal up to the brain and says, hey, I'm down here. You may want to burn me for fat as fuel. But the problem is, just like we get resistant to insulin, we become resistant to leptin. So, really interesting study. As always, I'll link the study in my notes. They looked at people who were on low carb diets, and they took one group and they lowered their carbs down and they kept their protein pretty much equal to what they were eating before. And they went and measured their insulin and leptin levels after being on this diet for several days. And they found that just lowering carbs by itself didn't really have much of a change, didn't create much of a change in leptin. So then with the second group, what they did is they kept the carbs low again, just like the first group, but this time they asked the second group to up their protein by 15%. So just a little increase in protein. And the minute they upped their protein, what happened is that their leptin levels went down. So leptin is not only the fat burning hormone, but it does have an impact on your hunger. So their belief in the study was that as they upped the protein on these low carb diets is that it killed hunger. And when it killed hunger, people ate less. And when they ate less, leptin started to go down. So my first recommendation to you is if you are keto, if you are low in carbs, it may be time for you to up your protein and make sure that you're eating a little more protein. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two, and those of you who have been following me, you're going to see a trend here of what diet I'm going to recommend at the end that hits all four of these points, by the way. Step number two. They have found that people who are sensitive to lectins, and I'll explain where you get lectins in a moment, also become leptin resistant. So lectins, you ready for the list? I'm going to power through them really quick, are found in a lot of your grains. So your wheat, rye, barley, wheat germ, quinoa, rice, oats, millets, and corn. But we also find lectins in legumes, we find them in dried beans, soy, peanuts, and in pasteurized dairy, coming from grain-fed cows, not grass-fed. So what they discovered in this study was if you had a diet high in lectins, that those lectins went into the receptor sites of leptin and made you leptin resistant. So the second food change I would encourage you to make is to pull the lectins out. So remember the first, you're going to up your protein. Second, we're going to pull lectins out. Number three, the third diet change that needs to happen. When you have high triglycerides, it prevents the transportation of leptin from fat up to the brain. So you want to keep your triglycerides low. And in this study, what they said, this was actually a study in the New England Journal of Medicine, What they said is how the best way to keep your triglycerides low is through a low-carb diet. Well, we love low-carb diets, and that matches really well with staying away from lectins, and it also matches really well with a higher protein, low-carb diet. Okay, number 4 is processed foods. So at the root of all obesity issues lives processed foods. Your bad oils, your fake ingredients, everything when you walk into a supermarket in those center aisles, that is all your processed foods. So the 4th thing you're going to want to make sure is that you're not eating those toxic, what I call fake foods. The fake foods are going to increase leptin in your body and make you more leptin resistant. Okay, so if you keep those 4 things in mind, what diet comes to mind? And I know you guys who've been following me for a while are already thinking it, which is the carnivore diet. So we have seen in our resetter community that when people go on a carnivore style diet, there's a lot of different variations. They're removing the lectins, they're removing the processed foods, they're bringing the carbs down, and they're upping the protein. So they're meeting all 4 of those steps, and they start to lose weight. But not only are they losing weight, and temporarily, not only are they helping insulin, but they are bringing those leptin levels down for good. So again, remember, you are born in a miracle. This is a self-healing machine. So if you're not getting the result that you are looking for, there is a large possibility that you've missed a piece to the puzzle. And when it comes to losing weight, it's so much more than insulin resistance. We've got to dive into leptin resistance. We as women have never been taught to vary our diet to match these 2 hormones. And estrogen and progesterone are like twin sisters. They look the same, we put them in the same category, give them the same name as sex hormones, but they have massively different personalities, which means there are massively different food types that they like. I've mentioned this in Fast Like a Girl, that the estrogen, she loves keto. I call it ketobiotic because I want us always to be bringing more of the polyphenol and probiotic and prebiotic foods into our life to support estrogen. And progesterone loves hormone feasting foods. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorites specifically for estrogen there. But these are the 2 food styles. Think of them as you're going to pulse in and out of these 2 food styles. If you have a cycle, great. If you do, and I'll show you how to do it with if you have a cycle. If you don't have a cycle, no problem. I want to show you how to do it based off of the signals that your body is giving you. So the 2 styles, ketobiotic and hormone feasting, apply to these 5 foods. So here we go. Number 1, my favorite, an avocado. Okay, so why would avocado be so spectacular for our hormones? Well, the first, I put avocado in the estrogen camp. And here's why an avocado can help you support estrogen. Estrogen wants you to keep your blood sugar down. And if you add an avocado to almost every meal, you slow the spike of blood sugar. So I personally, on the days that I know I need more estrogen, when I was cycling regularly, that was day 1 all the way through ovulation, somewhere around day 12, 13, 14, 15, I put an avocado with every meal that I had. I love avocado. I was recently, side funny note, I was recently interviewed on Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory podcast. And at the end, he asked me if I had one food I could take on a desert island with me, what would it be? And I said an avocado, because that's how much I love an avocado. So not only does it stabilize your blood sugar, but it also gives good fat to the brain. So remember, the brain is 50% fat. So it thrives when we give it fat. It nourishes the fat in the brain. The other reason I love an avocado is it can feed the microbiome. And you need the microbiome to break hormones down. So it's great when we're trying to build estrogen. It fills a lot of different buckets in helping support good estrogen production. My second favorite, and this is more a group of foods that support women's hormones, are bitter foods. This is your radicchio, your dandelion. This is lemon and ginger. These are bitter foods. And what bitter foods do is not only do they support good gut health, but they support your liver. And when we look at hormones, on one hand, we need to make hormones. So when we look at like the avocado, we're helping to support the making of estrogen. When we look at bitter foods and we go, okay, it supports the liver, it supports the gut, that is imperative to be able to help you break down the hormones that you produced. So liver health is key, and there's no better set of foods like bitter foods to be able to help you support a healthy liver so you can break all the sex hormones down, not just estrogen. This would fall into the camp of supporting you throughout your whole cycle. I teach the women in my Reset Academy that the time I like to come in with a big dose of bitter foods is during ovulation. So if you are a cycling woman, I called it the manifestation phase in Fast Like a Girl. But if you are a cycling woman, bring it in during ovulation. You have progesterone comes in, estrogen's at her peak, testosterone's at her peak. This is the time to bring in the bitter foods. Whereas we can look at avocado as being really important those first 10 days going into ovulation. During ovulation, we really want to make sure that we're bringing in those bitter foods. My postmenopausal women, the bitter foods help you when the hot flashes show up. The bitter foods help you when you struggle to sleep, because we've got to be able to get something to help you break estrogen down. You're getting less estrogen. We need to help support her breakdown, and that's where the liver foods, or the bitter foods, or liver foods, maybe I'll start calling them liver foods, can help you. Okay, number 3. This is one that I know not everybody knows exactly how to do, and some people think it's a little controversial, not sure why, and that is seeds. And there are 2 types of seeds I want you to eat, and they help 2 different hormones. The estrogen hero seed of the day are flax seeds. So more flax seeds, specifically flax oil. I love putting flax oil on my salads. Sometimes when I'm feeling like I just need to break down estrogen a little bit more, my skin feels dry, mucosal membranes are a little dry, I'll do more flaxseed. And so it's great for breaking down and supporting, it does both, supporting estrogen. Whereas pumpkin seeds, which are really yummy, support progesterone and the breakdown of progesterone. So hopefully you've heard of seed cycling. It's become a really interesting old healing strategy for supporting hormonal production. I think there's something really interesting about that. Again, we have gotten way too complicated with health. We think we have to, and especially hormonal health, like, gosh, we're talking about HRT and bioidenticals and what do you take? I'm here to tell you, let's start with your lifestyle. And when we look at seeds, we can see that cycling in flaxseed in the beginning, cycling in pumpkin at the end supports the production of these 2 major sex hormones. So think of it from the seed level. My women that have hot flashes, remember a hot flash, that is low estrogen, so more flaxseed. So, and I mean, the other ones are great too, but that's a big one to think about. Okay, number 4. This one is my favorite. This is my favorite. I say that about everything. Actually, all of these are my favorites. I pretty much eat all these every day. And the 4th one is root vegetables. But this is what I want you to know about root vegetables is they will support progesterone. And all these hormone tests I've done on women, the majority, 99.9% of women that we've seen are losing progesterone. We are in a rushing woman world, and the rushing woman, as cortisol goes up, progesterone goes down. And since Fast Like a Girl has come out, I am shocked at how many 20 and 30-year-olds have lost their periods altogether. And that's largely because they're missing progesterone, and you can bring progesterone back by increasing your root vegetables. So sweet potatoes are my favorite. I do all different types. When I go to the store, I get the golden ones, I get the white ones, I get the purple ones. They all feed different parts of my microbiome, and it makes it for a really yummy delight. When it comes to the squashes, same thing. My new favorite one is honey nut. I can get them at my farmer's market. Oh my God, they're so good. If you haven't tried a honey nut squash, highly recommend it. But even acorn and spaghetti and butternut, bringing those in will help you build progesterone. So if you're missing your cycle, if you're anxious a lot, I'm going to recommend that you bring in more root vegetables. I eat a root vegetable every couple of days, and when I eat it a lot. Okay, number 5. Now, this might upset some people. I'm just going to say it. It's got to be said. And number 5 is meat. And when I say meat, I've specifically meant grass-fed steak is phenomenal, but even poultry is really good. Let me tell you why. Vegetarians, don't stop here. I want to walk this through the thought process here. I'm not trying to convert you into eating meat, but I want you to think about this. So what happens when we eat grass-fed steak? You're getting all the amino acids that you need to be able to make hormones. So hormones have fuel requirements, and one of those fuel requirements is amino acids. And a grass-fed steak has all the amino acids that you need to be able to make all 3 hormones. So super important to get that in your diet. When we look at poultry, we're looking at our turkey and our chicken. That has the precursors, has a key component in it called tryptophan. And tryptophan is an amino acid that helps you make serotonin. Okay, my menopausal women, I want you to think about this. As we're going through menopause, we're losing estrogen. That's supposed to happen. And so when we lose estrogen, estrogen is a precursor for serotonin, and serotonin keeps us happy. So if we don't have enough serotonin, we can feel the blues. We can feel a little low. So often what happens to get that serotonin rush is we reach for carbohydrates. But you can get a precursor, a major precursor for serotonin in tryptophan, which comes in the form of poultry. So I hope you followed me there. If you are looking for a mood boost, and you're looking to increase not just estrogen, but you want to increase serotonin, you need more tryptophan, and that can come in the form of poultry. So a lot of nuance there. I mean, this is a dense 5 things. And if you are vegetarian, then what I want you to know is that you might have to supplement with tryptophan. Might be that you got to slide that in there. So make sure, and you can get that in other supplements so that you can get that serotonin lift to keep your moods up. So there you go. Those 5, like key 5 that we have to be bringing in to keep ourselves hormonally balanced. When you're hormonally balanced, your moods are balanced, your cycles are balanced, your cravings are balanced, your sleep is balanced. Hormones dictate everything we do in life, and these 5 foods are massively important for that hormonal balance. So let's dive in. Sleep. 3 organs that you've got to focus on. 1 is the brain. There are 3 parts of the brain that control sleep: your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your pineal gland. These are 3 areas of the brain that are not protected by a blood-brain barrier. So they're the most susceptible to stress and to inflammation and to toxins. Second organ I want you to look at is your gut. Your gut, as I'll explain, produces a lot of the good bacteria in there will produce things like melatonin that help you sleep. And then the third organ I want you to look at is your adrenals, your HPA axis. So we'll dive into that with when your adrenals are off. It's rarely just an issue with adrenals. It's usually the whole axis that's off. So I'll talk about that. So let's start with the brain. There are 2 things I want you to think about with the brain. 1 is circulation of your brain, and the second is your brain too inflamed? Is the brain on fire? So let's start with circulation. If you're somebody who is living a high-stressed life and you're sitting all day, stress and sedentary living creates vasoconstriction of the brain and will have the brain in a hyperactive state. So my first recommendation to you is move. Make sure you're getting out and you're moving around, and make sure that you have good techniques or good protocols for handling stress. Learning to say no more, learning to slow your life down that alone, which is why I put it as number 1, could have this massive impact on your sleep. So I want you to think about your brain circulation. Am I overly stressed right now? Am I not moving enough? The other piece I'll put in there, for those of you that are seeing a chiropractor, we know that the chiropractic adjustment will improve cerebral spinal fluid to the brain. So many of you notice that you get a better night's sleep on the day you see your chiropractor. It's a beautiful way to get movement up into the brain. So think about the circulation of the brain. Second thing I want you to think about is inflammation of the brain. What is causing your brain to inflame? And there are a couple reasons. One is insulin. Too much insulin. Those of you here on my channel, I know you're fans of keto, so make sure you're applying keto and fasting principles to keep that insulin down. Second is you may be reacting to a food. So get off gluten, get off dairy, get off sugar. Get off harmful oils. These are typically foods that people are reacting to. So avoid the more inflammatory foods like the ones I just mentioned. Third thing for inflammation on the brain is you could have an open blood-brain barrier. And this happens when you have a leaky gut. And then the fourth thing that causes inflammation is heavy metals. So you've heard me talk, mold is the other one. You've heard me talk a lot about that on my channel here. So heavy metals we're getting in our air, our soils, our foods. It's in people who are remodeling their homes. And same thing with mold, anywhere you've had water damage. So that is the second thing to look at under the brain. You want to look at your circulation to the brain. You want to look at inflammation of the brain. So in circulation, you want to look at your stress and make sure you're moving, get a chiropractic adjustment. With inflammation, you want to make sure you're lowering insulin, that you're not reacting to your food. We want to make sure you don't have an open blood-brain barrier, and that you are working with a practitioner to detox metals or mold. Okay, second organ I want you to think about is the gut. So the reason the gut is so important is because of the leaky gut barrier that I just talked about. So make sure you don't have a leaky gut. You also want to make sure you have enough good bacteria in your gut, that you're feeding your good bacteria. You want to make sure that you're getting plenty of plants in your daily life and that you're feeding those good bacteria. Polyphenol foods, fermented foods, prebiotic foods, those are the three categories of foods that are going to really feed your good bacteria. When you feed your good bacteria and you prevent leaky gut situations, your gut will produce the melatonin you need to sleep well. That's why the gut's so important. The other thing I want to add into melatonin production is if you are on your computer or on your phone at night before you go to bed, that blue light can often have an adverse effect on melatonin. It will tell your melatonin to shut off. So making sure you're not on your devices before you go to bed, or you're wearing some kind of blue blockers. Those of you that are fans of the Juve light can help your body produce more melatonin because it counteracts the effects of blue light. So that's under the gut, is your melatonin production. And the second thing I'll put under gut is fasting. Make sure you're doing some extended 24-hour fasts. Research out of MIT is showing that 24 hours of fasting will improve stem cell production in your intestinal walls. That's awesome. It'll help repair any pathogens that are in there. So if you're working on your leaky gut syndrome, you're feeding your good bacteria, and you're fasting, doing these 24-hour fasts on a regular basis, now you're really hitting the gut from a lot of different angles, and you're maximizing your melatonin production. Okay, last organ I want you to think about is more of a set of organs. It's your HPA axis. And this is your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal feedback loop. For a lot of you, that loop is off, which is throwing your whole circadian rhythms off, which is throwing off your sleep cycles. So the number one thing I recommend on HPA axis is understand if you have what I call a cortisol mix-up, meaning that you're maybe starting off the day with too low of a cortisol production and you're getting a surge at night of cortisol, and it's making it so that you can't fall asleep, or you're getting a surge at like 2 a.m, and when your glucose goes down, your cortisol starts to spike. So the best way to know what your cortisol pattern is through the Dutch test. You can also tell just by symptoms. Do you have trouble falling asleep? Do you wake up at 2 in the morning? Do you have, are you exhausted in the morning? If that's you, you've got your cortisol is all mixed up. And there's a couple of recommendations I have for you, and that is make sure you're getting plenty of sunlight so your body knows when day is and it knows when night is. That's really important. And then make sure at dinner you're eating enough good fat so that your glucose doesn't get too low, and so that when your glucose goes down, that's when your adrenals are going to create a cortisol surge at 2 in the morning. Okay? And then the last thing on the HPA axis I want to mention is a lot of you guys are stuck in fight or flight. What I mean by that is your sympathetic dominant nervous system is so overworked, and you don't have tools to raise the parasympathetic nervous system. A measurement for this is called HRV, and that's what I use my Oura Ring for. We do measure HRV in my office as well. It will give you a reading to tell you how well you are balancing your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So some of you need to get better balance with those two nervous systems. Great way to balance it is meditation. So with your brain, you want to think about your circulation and inflammation that's happening in the brain. With the gut, you want to think about your melatonin production, and you want to make sure you're doing some 24-hour fasts, which with your HPA axis and your adrenals, you want to make sure that cortisol is not mixed up. You don't have toxins like heavy metals and mold in the brain, and you want to make sure you're not stuck in fight or flight. Okay? Those are 7 things. Like, this is why some of you are going to take number 1 and you'll sleep great.
Okay, check this out. I have a free fasting guide for you all. It's free. And it's going to teach you all the basics of fasting. It's going to teach you how to kill hunger when you fast, which is really cool. And it's going to show you how to break your fast, among many other things. All you got to do is click on this link right here and enjoy.
Okay, ready? Here's where the study was done and what they did it on. I don't want you to get confused at what they actually did the study on, because there's so much we can learn about hormones from this study. So it was done on PCOS. So if you have PCOS, this is great news. I got really good news for you. If you don't have PCOS and you're a woman working on balancing your hormones, I've also got great news for you. So stick all the way through this. Just as a reminder, the hallmarks for PCOS are, and they put this in the study, they are the prevalence of metabolic syndrome. So that's obesity, that's heart disease, that's diabetes. Then they went on to say another hallmark is cardiovascular problems. This is really pertinent for those of you that are postmenopausal, and then type 2 diabetes. So the reason I wanted to point out the hallmarks of PCOS and the way that they phrased it in this study is that we can use all the information that we can gain from this study to help with diabetes, we can help with cardiovascular problems, and we can overcome metabolic syndrome. You don't have to have PCOS to be able to use intermittent fasting to heal yourself. So really important that you notice that nuance. Okay, now what was the study? How was it done? And this is where I get so excited. Okay, it was done on women. Thank you. We need more women studies. It was done on 18 women between the age of 18 and 31. Thank you. I am so exhausted with these studies trying to compare an 18-year-old woman to a 65-year-old woman. They took the right range of ages, 18 to 31. We got 18 women. This is phenomenal. Like, as I was reading through this, I'm like, yes, you did it right. This is fabulous. Now, 15 of those 18 completed the study, which I think is interesting. It means 3 didn't complete it, perhaps because intermittent fasting, when you first come to it, can be a little tough. But I just want to point that out because that will come into play here at the end. Now, it was a 6-week trial. This is also really important because we love fasting, but sometimes we want the results right away. And in this study, they had to go over 6 weeks of continual intermittent fasting to be able to see a benefit. And the first week, by the way, all they did is stabilize their weight. They didn't want them gaining weight or losing weight. And then they followed that with a 5-week period of intermittent fasting. It did not say in the study if they changed their food. They just did intermittent fasting. which is super cool because one of my major tenets of fasting is you can take a fasting lifestyle and apply it to any diet. So I love this was zoned in specifically on fasting. Now, they also, what they did right in this study is 28 different measurements, and a lot of them are hormones they measured. So I love that. They weren't just looking at one marker, they were looking at 28 different things with these 18 women or 15 that completed the study. So what changed? This is the most important part. Over this 5-week period of intermittent fasting in these 15 women who completed the study, in these 28 different measurements, here's what changed. Body weight, BMI, body fat mass, body fat percentage, visceral fat. This is the damaging fat, that visceral fat. All of that improved in a 5-week period. Testosterone balanced out. Amazing. Fasting insulin, insulin-resistant markers, and glucose levels all improved, and inflammation went down. They measured CRP. That is insane, you guys. And all they did is intermittent fasting over a 5-week period. First week they stabilized, then made sure that they didn't gain weight, that they were just stabilizing their weight. So really promising. And they saw an improvement in their menstrual cycle. So a lot of these women with PCOS, they don't have a menstrual cycle, so they saw improvement in their menstrual cycle. And this was actually detected in 11 out of the 15. I want to just be clear, it wasn't all 15. It was 73% of the 15 that completed. Still amazing. Okay, so what can we learn from this study? Hopefully you're as excited as I am. So first thing is we know when you intermittent fast over several weeks that you can improve insulin resistance, you can balance hormones like testosterone, you can lower inflammation, and you can lose weight. That's amazing. So again, these are hallmarks of chronic disease. Super excited to see that. This question I had when I read the study, and those of you that are following me, you know you're probably already thinking, like, what part of their menstrual cycle were they doing this? Should they be doing this all the time? The question I had was, should these women, they got great results with intermittent fasting, so should they intermittent fast all the time? And I want to bring this back to what the next level of the study should be and the next level of your knowledge. When women come to fasting, there should be 3 phases you go through. The first phase is just learn to fast. That's what these 15 women did. They just learned to intermittent fast, and boom, look at the changes that they made. So this is very encouraging for those of you that are new. Second stage is once you learn how to fast, I want you to learn how to get into ketosis. So get like a Keto Mojo, get a continuous glucose monitor, something that is going to help you understand if you are in ketosis. Again, the pinprick one, our favorite is Keto Mojo. So learn to fast, then learn to get into ketosis. Then I want you to learn how to fast for your cycle. So really encouraging study. I'm so grateful that it was done on women. I hope you guys are as excited about it as I am. If you have PCOS, I want to let you know I have another video that I did specifically for you guys. It's called Intermittent Fasting and PCOS. And as always, share your fasting story below so everybody can learn from your experience. And if you love this video, share it out into the world. Women, this is more proof we need to fast.
If you love that video and you want to dive into more of the information I have on this channel, go to this video. If you're trying to use fasting as a tool for weight loss, congratulations. It literally is the best tool I have ever seen for weight loss. I think you should start with fasting before you change your food,